Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Marysville today, Tuesday, February 18th, year 2020 at 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hudson.
Here.
Councilmember McKenzie.
Here.
Councilmember Simmons.
Here.
Vice Mayor Buttacavoli. Mayor Sam Iowa.
Here. At this point, I'd like to ask everyone, please stand and join me on the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge. I pledge allegiance. Thank you, everyone.
Where's Bruce?
Backwards? Back gave out. Any changes to the agenda, Ms. Brown?
And that will be the slipper.
Yes, Mayor. Inadvertently, the agenda item regarding the submission of the FEMA grants should be number 8, and the agenda item regarding city council travel should be number 9.
Okay, I see what you're saying. 8, 9, okay. Thank you. With that, any closed session reports, Mr. City Attorney?
Yes, at the last meeting, the City Council tentatively approved a settlement in the matter of Butcher and others versus the city pending in the Eastern District Federal Court. That has 2 more contingencies to go, and if they happen, we will have a settlement.
Thank you. With that, we'll move to presentations. We have some exciting members of the public joining us today who participated in the HDTV video production application. They include Joe Ferry, Megan Sue, Brandon Conejo, Kerry Conejo, Brian Conejo, Becca Saavedra, Russell Houde, and Joanne McDaniel. And so we have some certificates of appreciation for them. We also have a B Street property market assessment and presentation. We have a member from the founder and managing member of the New Economics and advisor, Ms. Domingo. Got to make it easier for me, I guess. And so we'll start with the, I'd like to have Councilmember McKenzie join me to. So about 110 views right now on Facebook. Sorry, and YouTube another 20. I mean, I think I've seen it like 1,000 times, but just because I don't know if that counts.
He was looking at his own picture, though. Don't.
I know. I keep like pausing. Oh, my hair. Oh, no, just kidding. So we got some certificates of appreciation for the amazing work you guys did in getting the community together. These are in no particular order. We just got them here, and they state the City of Marysville would like to thank you for your devotion to the city and your willingness to invest your time, effort towards its success. And signed by me, so I don't know what that means other than, but we do appreciate it. Joanne McDaniels, gonna make it today. Do you guys want to deliver it to her? Okay. Russell, thank you, sir. You're the man.
Thank you.
We'll get a picture afterwards. She, I think, was the ninja of this whole club. Ms. Becca Saavedra, you were like, I don't know where, all of a sudden appeared, and you just kicked some butt. So you're awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm the loud one, so
Hey, you made it. You pushed it. And then the Conejo brothers. And then let's Brian and Brandon. So where's Brian and Brandon? Okay, let me guess. I'm gonna go with Brandon and Brian.
Nailed it.
Thank you, brothers. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for all that work. And then the brains of the family, Ms. Carrie Conejo.
It was me, I did it.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Megan's not here? Okay. And the family, Joe Fair, the man, the legend, the one and only. I need a hug. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Stephanie would like to say a few words. Take a picture after.
Oh, yeah, we'll take a picture. I just wanted to say how proud I am of you as our community members and the vision that you have and the passion that you have and the love you have for our city. And there's a quote that I love, and you guys just exemplify this in the whole effort that we did with this video. It's by Vince Lombardi, and he says, individual commitment to a team effort is what makes a team work, a business work, a society work, a civilization work, and to us, it's what makes Marysville work. So thank you for being willing to invest your individual commitment to us. So I appreciate it very much.
Nice to meet you guys. Nice to meet you.
I'd like to thank Marysville PD, Marysville Fire for their help.
Yeah. Good job, guys. Well done.
That's what we think.
Hopefully.
But they're gonna pick 6 cities, and so we have the most views by almost.
Awesome.
Oh, you have to do it. Anybody else in the
Sweet.
Can you say that again so that they hear you
sorry.
in the public? Yeah. Whoa, hello.
I'm already too loud. No, I was saying we have the most views out of all the submissions right now by almost 30,000 views. And that's including the whole nation. Any town that was less than 40,000 people were able to apply to this. And 1,600 submissions, and we have the most views by a long shot. And they're gonna be picking 6 cities, so we have a huge shot at this. A huge shot.
Sweet. Well done.
Thank you.
I'm hoping you guys can stay for the next presentation. It's going to be, as we're talking about the future of Marysville. This is Community Development, Mr. Wright. Are you kind of bringing this up?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Jonathan Wright, Community Development. So the city purchased a 5.1 acre piece of property more than a decade ago on the east side of Highway 70 and B Street between 12th and 14th. And is bound by the rail line on the east. It's a site we've come to know as the B Street property. Last summer, the city staff recommended to council that in an effort to focus the disposition and development of the B Street property towards its highest and best use, a market assessment should be conducted before disposing of the property. As a result of this assessment, the attached reports, which are contained in your packet here, distill down market research results into 3 potential development strategies and options, seeking the sweet spot between the highest one-time land sale value, ongoing revenues such as property tax and sales tax, and the city's council's desired outcome. Here tonight is Isabel Domingo of New Economics and Advisory to give you her findings. Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. Thank you, Jonathan, for the intro. Thank you for inviting me here today to share some professional insights on the B Street site. Before I get started, I also want to thank City Manager Brown and Mr. Jonathan Wright for providing oversight and assistance on this analysis. So I'm planning to just spend maybe about 10 or 15 minutes reviewing kind of how I did the analysis and the key takeaways, the key considerations. If you want, you can ask some questions at the end. If you have a burning question or you just really want to talk about something, feel free to just interrupt me as I go. So just a quick little bit about myself. My firm, New Economics and Advisory, is a boutique consulting firm that analyzes a variety of economic issues designed to help inform key decisions around development and or conservation of land. A significant portion of my work occurs in the Sacramento region, and I've been doing this for about 15 years. However, I'm also pretty active in the northern part of the valley. I've done some development impact fee work for the city of Chico. I've worked on a large proposed master plan in Yuba County off of Highway 70, and I've done multiple assignments, some of which are ongoing for the city of Yuba City. So all of that has helped me become familiar over the years with this part of the valley. So the purpose of this particular analysis was to evaluate the three development concepts to understand how much money could be generated, both in one-time and ongoing revenues, as well as how to see development occur on the site in a relatively short amount of time, as the city has owned this for a while. So I'm going to flip through here and just kind of focus on the pictures, because I'll just tell you the takeaways as I go. So as Jonathan mentioned, the site is approximately 5 acres in size. It's bounded by 12th and 14th Street, the railroad line, and Ellis Lake, and Highway 70. One of the highlights is that this site is vacant. So except for a temporary art installation and some overhead utility poles, the site is ready to move forward with something or other. So for purposes of this analysis, we assume that the poles would be moved or undergrounded to make way for a development project.
Through the chair.
Yes?
Is the Kinder Morgan fuel line that's going through there, is that been taken into consideration, or is it in the right of way of the railroad tracks?
So it has been moved to be either within the railroad easement or immediately adjacent to the railroad easement. So it is now on the, like in that picture, it's now on the right-hand edge of the site.
So you don't foresee that being an issue with development?
No, we hired a planning sub-consultant, Ascent Environmental, and they had some in-house resources on this question. We did ask whether there were any issues that we should be aware of around new development next to a pipeline. And what their in-house expertise revealed was that there should be at least 10-foot setbacks for certain things, 25 for other things, and 50 was the most. And all three of the land use options that were developed for purposes of this study all met those requirements.
Awesome, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so we looked at 3 potential site plans or site development options. The first one was high-density affordable housing. This would be sort of a 3-story garden apartment concept with 120 residential units, and that's what that looks like. And I'm sorry the visibility here is not super great. The second option is a little bit of a condensed version. So it still has primarily residential. It's, I think, 84 residential units, also multifamily affordable housing. But in that corner at 14th and B, there's a good size retail component. It's about 17,000 square feet of retail. And I don't know if you can see, you might be able to see it in your packet better than you can here on the overhead projector. There's like a little yellow square, and that is meant to be a plaza. And the way that this was designed is so that retail is really kind of a place-based type of retail. It's somewhere people want to go and hang out, not your typical highway commercial where you're just driving in and out and around. So the idea is that maybe we can get something that's new, that doesn't currently exist in Marysville, and that is really supported by the local community, in addition to pass-by traffic. Okay, and the third concept that we explored was an industrial use, purely industrial, and specifically a cannabis use, as the city's ordinance now allows that. So in this illustrative concept plan, there's about 61,000 square feet of cultivation space, plus another 27,000 square feet for administration, production, and retail. Okay. So I'm going to go back now and talk specifically about each option. So let's start with option one, which was the multifamily. It says this was 120 residential units. So the pros of this option there are quite a few. First of all, this is an opportunity to provide new housing, in this case multifamily housing, which is in high demand throughout California. This could be the first major residential catalyst project for Marysville, which has experienced relatively little residential growth over the last several years. So if this project is successful, it has the ability to stimulate additional housing, including multifamily housing elsewhere in downtown. Another consideration is that adding all these residential units to downtown is going to create direct and indirect spin-off revenue and activities here. It's going to activate your downtown. Residents are going to spend most of their money in Marysville, most of their local and community retail spending money in Marysville, and it's going to inject stable local funds into existing downtown businesses. Another positive attribute about this is that it's right across the street from Ellis Lake, and the way that Ascent designed this land use concept was they tried to have the units facing Ellis Lake as much as possible, and if they can't face the lake because they're sort of U-shaped, it's a U-shaped 3-story garden, like a walk-up apartment type of configuration, then the other units that are not facing the lake would face those little parklets. So they really tried to show an example of a multifamily housing project that has really nice views and takes advantage of the local amenities. The last thing I want to point out about this is that there are a lot of amenities that downtown Marysville has to offer within a very close proximity. So this is close to existing transit, it's close to a major health center, it's close to a grocery store, it's close to the high school, it's relatively close to the elementary school, and these are all very attractive amenities that multifamily developers are looking for. So now I'm going to talk about some of the challenges associated with this option. When I interviewed developers who do both market rate and affordable housing projects, they all agreed that it would be very difficult to make this work as a market rate project. The rents in Marysville, and to a certain extent Yuba City, are too low to make the numbers work. So they all looked at this and said, okay, market rate units are out, but maybe we could do this as affordable housing. So we got more into that. They also said that in the near term, affordable housing is going to be difficult for a number of reasons. One is that affordable housing developers are looking for sites that they can get for free, or they want to enter into ground lease opportunities, which means they want to lease it for a long period of time, and then as they've paid off their other investors and their other loans, then they're willing to enter into some sort of revenue share with the city as the primary landowner. So the near-term revenue options are going to be difficult to get if you develop this as affordable housing. The other challenge that's associated with this option is that the funding for affordable housing is changing quickly. And it's hard to know where Marysville is going to stack up, competitively speaking. So there's a lot of pressure to build multifamily housing all over this state, and I think there's going to be a lot of money that the governor and the state are going to make available. The challenge will be understanding what the new rules are for those funding options and where Marysville stacks up. So one thing we had talked about with staff was that For example, there's an option where if you are within the boundaries of a qualified census tract, you can get like a 30% bump in certain revenue streams. This site is literally just outside of the boundaries of Marysville's qualified census tract. So staff could, make an effort to figure out if we could get that boundary change. That's going to take some time. In the meantime, some of the other funding sources, might be more favorable. There's now some emergency disaster funds being made, there are now some federal funds being made available to communities that are vulnerable to natural disasters such as flooding. That could be great for Marysville. There are some other ones where Marysville may not stack up so well. So it's a little bit hard to know, and I think the way this would play out is that if you could find an affordable housing developer to take this on, they would want to option the site, and they would want to hold on to it for maybe a year or two while they try to see if they could line up all the funding to make it happen. So it's not a near-term sale.
The question, what about our disadvantaged community lots on these housing projects? Because we are.
A disadvantaged community. So
We're
that,
severely disadvantaged, so somebody got a pay raise, so.
So yes, that is a good designation to have. It's just there are a lot of designations out there for different funding sources, and it's a complicated game. Like the game of finding funding for affordable housing is difficult and it's complicated. And so finding a developer that will stick with you through the process and come forward with a project and then go and put together all the funding sources could take a couple of years. Okay, any other questions on just this one, or should we go on to the next one?
Another question I have, would
Yes, sir.
Habitat qualify to be a construction contractor for this affordable housing, since that's their business?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Would Habitat for Humanities be a client for this contracting agreement?
I don't know. I'd have to look into that.
Well, see, those are options we need to know.
I do think that a nonprofit and or a local developer would probably be the most likely buyer for this site.
Is there infrastructure needs? I think you spoke to them in the attachment to make this happen. I mean, is there certain things that have to happen to get it ready or to lower some of the development costs?
Yes, there are. So for any of the development options, the utility poles would need to be moved or undergrounded.
And in the finances, are you looking at the developer paying for those costs?
Unclear. I assume that would ultimately come out of the price, the sales price. It's going to have to get done, and it could be a significant cost or it could be a not significant cost depending on who exactly is on those poles and whether there's an opportunity to upgrade the power while you are moving the lines. So I'm not sure exactly how much it's going to cost, but I did assume that would have to happen, and it's going to come out of the top line revenues.
And then how about the water and sewer? Do we have need to make improvements to support those type of developments?
So I corresponded with Cal Water. They initially thought that they could serve the site and make whatever improvements are necessary and just fund that through user fees. However, they recently retracted that statement and said that they would need to be able to review very detailed site plans to determine whether infrastructure upgrades would be needed.
Could the government entity pay for those improvements, or Cal Water has to do them, or can they get reimbursed by another source of fund?
I'm trying to think I don't think she was that specific.
I know Mary's here somewhere, but
Oh, is she here?
There she is.
so if there was to be improvements to be made or needed for water, whether it's the pressure or fire suppression, whatever it may be, can those improvements be paid by the developer, right?
Usually by the developer. Initially, before I saw some of the plans, and then once I saw them, it could require a main extension. It could be multiple fire services, depending whether you go residential or commercial. So it just really would depend on what was going to go there, how many units. One unit was 80, I think. So it really just needed some more detail, so we could determine what was actually going to be needed on site. And then usually developer paid for something that extensive.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry, I saw you, so I figure I'd call it.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah, because there's water lines there, but not nearly enough to service what she's talking about.
Yeah. And then how about sewer?
Mayor, we researched that, and there is sewer to the site. It would, just like any other development, it would be up to the developer to connect to the system.
I guess I'm bringing it up, and I'll bring it up later, about, I think I shared with the council and with Jonathan a whole list of grants, infill type of projects, dollars available from the state to kind of prep for small cities to be able to go after these fundings, to kind of prep the land to get it ready for, I don't know if those type of improvements would actually qualify for them. I think as long as it has some type of affordable housing.
That's correct, Mayor. It has to be attached to affordable housing component. Did speak with SACOG today and verify that those grants are still available.
Okay, I'm going to move on to option 2, which is very similar to option 1. This had only 84 units of residential housing, but it had a retail component. And the reason that we looked at this is that Marysville is doing extremely well in certain retail categories, but then is underserved in other retail categories. This is a dynamic that I'm very familiar with because I've done a lot of retail market research in Yuba City, and I think we can all hear the sucking sound of Marysville spending dollars being sucked towards Yuba City. So anyhow, what was interesting to me about this was that, all of the pros and cons on the housing are the same as what I talked about for option 1. The retail portion, the pro here is that the retail portion could potentially happen sooner. You could see retail occur sooner. You could see the sales tax dollars occur sooner. And it would also add some on-site jobs. We don't know exactly what would go there. Our best estimate by looking at different potential types of retail users was maybe 30, 35 on-site jobs, which would be a great addition for downtown Marysville. On the challenge side, I think whoever buys this sort of site as a whole will have to do some planning, more detailed planning, to ensure that the access, like internal access, external access for both retail and the housing component, are done correctly. What you wouldn't want to do, even if you have to parcelize the retail, because the housing developer is not going to want to develop the retail site. It's not what they do. They're very uncomfortable with it. But you will want, from a planning perspective, to make sure that the people who live in those units can walk to that retail site and be very comfortable to do that. And you don't want to have just a big fence in between the two parcels. The other challenge is, more to the point of what I was saying before, Marysville has certain types of retail that do really well, and you have a lot of those retailers. And this is an opportunity to get something new or different that serves the local community. So to the extent that the developer comes back with another gas station or another fast food eatery, it's hard to say whether those uses would generate net new sales tax for the city, or if they're just going to be shifting sales from another gas station or another fast food eatery. And so the ability to get those long-term net new taxable sales will depend on the actual user that can be secured. Okay, then the last one is industrial, specifically cannabis. So the pros of this option are significant ongoing sales tax revenues. The other two options, I think we said, would generate somewhere in the range of $100,000 to $125,000 or $130,000 a year between property tax and sales tax. This cannabis option would generate something in the range of $1.3 million annually. So it's a significant potential revenue generator, and could help the city pay off the existing bond debt more quickly. This also a very jobs-rich use, not as much as the retail, but we thought maybe somewhere in the range of 25 to 30 on-site jobs. Those workers will all be spending money. They all have to go to lunch somewhere. Maybe they have to run some other errands on the way to and from work. The challenge with this one is, in a lot of ways, is the most risky proposition because the cannabis market has softened quite a bit since 2017. Just the number of cannabis transactions, leasing and buying, has slowed significantly, and really nobody seems to be buying land for cannabis. All the existing deals are on existing buildings, as you know, because there is another building just a couple blocks away that has a new cannabis user. So finding somebody who has the money to invest in a new build project will be difficult. There's a relatively small number of cannabis operators that have pockets that deep, and they would probably need to partner with a developer to do it. And the reason that this is particularly risky for Marysville is that Sacramento has much larger population concentrations. So if this were to happen, but then somebody else had a better located project in Sacramento, you could lose this user. One of the things that we talked about with the industrial brokerage community was, how could we make this attractive? What more could we do to make this really a really cool, attractive cannabis project? And they said things like, well, you'd have to do something that nobody else is doing. So you'd have to change your cannabis ordinance and allow on-site consumption. You'd have to allow there to be a bar next door so people can come and they want to hang out. Nobody else in Northern California is doing that. The risk, again, is that if you did that and then another city with a existing cannabis ordinance like West Sacramento or Woodland or Sacramento allows that, that interest is going to go to those larger population centers. And it may be difficult to backfill a cannabis building with another user. So, okay, so then to conclude, I wanted to share just 2 other findings that came up over the course of doing this analysis. Things we weren't necessarily looking to analyze, but just came out of the work. Okay, one is, I'm going to go back to the actual site. Okay, so I just want to go back to the blank site. One is that a combo of retail and public storage could be a viable alternative. Almost all the developers and brokers that I spoke with over the course of this analysis said that public storage is in high demand, and it's a need in this community or in the northern part of the valley, and that this is a great location because it's on a state highway. The downside about public storage, as I'm sure you can all imagine, is that it's not going to create any jobs, it's not going to create any sales tax, it's not going to create any activation in this part of downtown Marysville. So the idea that was floated was, well, what if we put retail on the B Street frontage portion, and then you tucked the storage in the back? So we didn't study this alternative, but I wanted to share it with you because it was an idea that sort of slowly evolved over time. And the benefits of that concept is that it does generate sales tax. With the retail user, it does create some jobs. It does create a good one-time sale opportunity for the city because people will probably pay top dollar they'll pay the top industrial rate for that type of development, and it is in demand. The other thing that came up was the possibility of disposing of the site kind of on an on-demand basis. So if someone wants to buy part of the property, but maybe not all the property, would the city consider doing that? So that's something that we looked at and we sort of asked about along the way. And, it's very clear that the corner at 14th and B is a high demand piece. It's a corner retail piece. It has good access to the highway. It's right across, has the crosswalk to get you to Ellis Lake. It's across from other retail. So that site you could probably sell in about 5 minutes if you wanted to. The challenge with that approach is that it leaves the city a little bit vulnerable to not having a real plan for the rest of the site. So I think if that's something that the council would want to entertain, sort of some money better than no money right away, I would advise the city to still undertake a planning process to make sure that then you're not left with kind of the worst part of the site with no plan and access challenges. And in particular, the thing that I'm concerned about, as you can see in this figure too, is that on 14th Street descends to go underneath the railroad. So there's really no direct access to 14th Street. I'm sorry, to 12th Street, thank you. To 12th Street from the south side of the property. So if there's going to be an effort or a desire to kind of carve the project up into smaller pieces, there should really be some planning around how that south side of the project site could still be accessible and desirable to other future users. So with that, I'm going to conclude my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the council might have for me.
Through the chair. Yes, sir. I vaguely remember us having a conversation on the council a while ago about possibly the idea of a hotel restaurant type thing in that area, or was anything like that considered?
No, we did not consider hotel. That did not come up. It's an interesting idea because transit occupancy tax is one of the few sources of revenue that a city gets and gets to decide what to do with that, right? Only property and sales tax are the only other ones. That's not something we looked at. We did include consideration of restaurants when we looked at that retail piece in option number 2, and we thought a sit-down restaurant is something that Marysville doesn't have much of, and it's a little bit hard because again the population is small, and people think more about Yuba City when they want to go to those things, but there's no reason that it can't happen here. It's just going to take the right restaurant, finding the right restaurant. So I think, does that answer your question?
It does answer my question.
Okay.
I mean, it hadn't been brought up, but it is a possibility to research maybe.
Okay.
Yes.
So you said it wasn't considered, but was there a reason? Was it one that wasn't looked at on purpose, or was it just something that nobody thought of to look at the time?
I can't remember if we actually ever brainstormed the hotel idea.
We didn't, but since then you and I have talked about it. One of the things you mentioned, which is that it is a specialized kind of market research that would need to be done, that was really outside the scope of this project and the budget that we had for it. So that is kind of a specialized field of hotel market research. That's one thing. The other thing was when we embarked on this effort, we were really trying to look at the main 3 zoning types that we have in the city: residential, commercial, and manufacturing, and trying to find the sort of sweet spot between revenue generation and what the market would actually bear out there, and finding out where's that sweet spot for each zoning type. And this is what we ended up landing on in the end. And as you can see, it has been challenging. I think both Isabel and I have been working on this since the beginning, and Jonathan's come in the last 5 or 6 weeks, but we've both been surprised at what we learned. I think our initial instincts weren't 8 months ago where we landed, I think.
Correct.
Right? So I think it's been a good exercise.
Thank you.
Any other question?
Yeah, one question. Just for your consideration, we did have a plan for a Holiday Express. And the property owners at this particular piece of property were not willing to sit down, so we put a car wash there. And, our hospital's right around the corner.
We didn't put a car wash.
Yeah, we did. We authorized it.
Oh.
Anyway,
It was
the point
used-
may be.
They could use it any way they wanted. They bought the property.
Yeah. Gee, that's novel, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, that Holiday Express is probably still on the market since they were going to put one over in Yuba City. But I think on that Highway 2070 corridor, that's prime for a Holiday Express or likening to that. So, as well as the hospital, because if they ever turn to needing condo-type apartments, then that would be a good fit. And
Okay.
that concludes my presentation.
Okay.
Were any consideration on mixed use, like doing bottom floor commercial and
Yes, I'm glad you asked about that. Originally, we were thinking that the option 2, which has the combination of retail and residential, would be what you just described. However, as we got into it and we interviewed developers, they really do not want to do ground floor retail, and they try really hard to stay away from it, and it has been very difficult to implement in markets outside of highly urbanized areas. And the reason is that housing developers don't do retail. So for them, designing a ground floor for a totally different type of user is just outside of their wheelhouse. And so if you go to downtown, well, I don't want to pick on any downtowns. There are a number of downtowns in the East Bay where, significant redevelopment efforts have taken place, and developers have been required to include first floor retail. And if you drive by those now, 7 years later, 2/3 of those ground floor retail are vacant because they weren't done correctly, because nobody really understood how to do ground floor retail. And when the housing developers look at projects like that, they essentially write off the retail as valued at 0 because they don't have any confidence that they can rent those out successfully. So it's not a revenue stream for them, it's just another requirement.
And how about your parking assessment? Are all your parking requirements are met in your plans here?
Yes, so Ascent did all of the site planning for us, and they relied on the city's existing parking requirements. You could, if you wanted to incentivize more units, the city could consider changing those parking requirements. What they ended up drawing out was a 3-story garden, like walk-up apartments, which is the product that's being built in the affordable housing world all over the Central Valley and the East Bay. So that is sort of the most feasible product out there right now, and that's what they designed with the city's current parking ratios.
And did you consider some type of transient-oriented development?
That's a very good question. So what we found was that this site is within, I believe it's less than a half mile from existing transit stops, the existing bus stops. I think it's maybe 1/3 of a mile from from 3 different Yuba Sutter bus stops. That technically, I believe, does make it a TOD site. I think the TOD requirement is something like a half mile, even though they prefer a 1/4 of a mile. And that does open up some potential funding sources.
But we probably would have to improve our sidewalks or our bike routes or something, right?
Yes, and so we would need to maybe consider going after some infrastructure grants if you decide to go the route of affordable housing. There are numerous grants out there that you can use, and you would need to probably widen the sidewalks and do all sorts of ADA improvements, and potentially add a couple of things to the actual bus stops to make those eligible transit stops.
But we can also work with US Sutter Transit and other transit systems to create a TOD, right?
Yes.
To make that the stop as they move forward.
Oh, to make that the stop, I suppose you could. Right now, their route goes on 12th Street, and then it comes around sort of the top, so somewhere, I think, further north on B Street.
Well,
because it goes sort of in 2 different directions. It has it does like a loop.
What we do know is that the Sacramento express buses that take a lot of folks down to Sacramento are packed.
Okay.
They're packed every day because it's $4 a trip, and they can, be online and just, enjoy the trip down there, get to work and come back on the same bus. So in my mind, I'm thinking that would be, so when you were kind of talking about this, what was who were the people that you thought were living here? I guess, are they Sacramento folks? Are they hospital folks? Are they Caltrans folks? Are they just residents who don't want to live in their house anymore and they want to come and live in a smaller house from Marysville?
Right. My research didn't go quite that deep, and really simply because there is so much pent-up demand for multifamily housing in this state that I think if the project gets built, there will be no shortage of applicants. Beale Air Force Base has this incoming stream of young military workers, the ones who probably don't have families or who have very small families would be good candidates. If it's affordable housing, you're at 80, 60 or less % of median household income for the county. So really anybody in those income ranges, would be a candidate for this type of project. And as I said, there's just an extreme shortage of multifamily housing all over the state, so.
Are you asking today for input? Are you coming back with another report after you give input from us? Or, I mean, what's the process today?
So I was do you want to? Okay, so this is sort of the culmination of all the research that I've done to date on sort of the market conditions surrounding the site for the land use concepts that we looked at. I came here today to share those results with you and to answer any questions that you might have. If the council wants to further study other alternatives or would like me to do some additional research, I'm happy to work with the city manager to make that happen. At this point is just providing the information for your consideration so that you guys can think about, or the council can think about how you want to proceed with the site.
Mayor, the intent for this evening was just gauge the temperature of the council. There's a lot of information that's been put forward in this report. It's a big packet of information that you have in your hands to take home, kind of seeing what the flavor is, and then staff taking that back and not coming at you with, let's make a decision now, but then at a meeting in the not-so-distant future, coming back and actually saying what the direction might be of the council. So tonight's just informational.
So I've been chicken scratching a lot of things in my head to my friends, and I put it all together, so I want to share that with all of you as input. Can we, Nicole? Sure, Vanna White. Okay. This is Ricky's input, chicken scratch, based on a lot of things that you were talking, and we're in the same committee together at SACOG and SACOG provided us a list of a bunch of funding opportunities for infill projects, and the TOD concept came along because of how do we connect B Street to not only the state highway, but also maybe to our residential places. So this is Ricky's concept of a transit-oriented development that I like to provide input on. So it would start with, and this is facing south, which I'm assuming that that's totally wrong, right, Brad?
Most maps are more
So the bottom is north, and the top over there is south. There was a proposal, and I'm not sure where it is, whether it's in our ped and bike master plan, to do a tunnel on 14th Street to connect underneath the railroad tracks to connect East Marysville to West Marysville. And so that's the initial green area right there. Do you have a little?
Where's the pointer? Oh, it's left on the podium. Okay.
So we would go after active transportation grant, or maybe even a CDBG grant. It would probably require some design dollars from our end to make it.
Is it on, Rick?
Okay, so that's this tunnel right here on 14th Street. It'll go underneath the railroad tracks, and it would be a pedestrian bikeway. My understanding is there's some solutions that would make it so there's not a lot of, it doesn't take away from UP's usage or be small. Anyway, if you go to the next slide, that's the initial tunnel. What does that say? Because I'm blind.
That's East Ellis Lake.
Oh, so then over here on East Marysville, we would improve a bike path that would go along to that proposed development by Lanza and Ocho Penti.
Ramirez?
Yes, Ramirez, right?
The old sign shop.
So that would tie that to this development of 72 units that they were proposing. And actually, the trail will go all the way to Miners Park. If you go to the next slide. What is that? Oh, and then we would maybe go for another Prop 68 grant and improve East Lake. So that would connect now this proposed development to some recreational activities that hopefully make this development a bit more competitive for dollars. And then it'll also tie the bike route down to Miners Park, which we proposed a Prop 68 grant, and hopefully we'll get those dollars. The hope would be to make this, because this is a bike oriented park, then maybe we create a bike hub that connects other trails to other areas. Is that, what's the next one? What does that say? Oh, that's this project right here, so we'll connect this one. What else does it say? I'm blind, I'm sorry.
May be able to reduce parking requirements for our transit hub.
And maybe increase the number of units for that development. Okay, thank you. Another active transportation that would kind of link all these things would be doing a cross bridge across 70 where we play Frogger to cross the levee by the cemetery. So that would link this gap between the levees. And as we know, Caltrans is going to be working on all this and making a 5-lane. They're going to make all kinds of improvements. And so we can take advantage of their timeline and add this element as part of another grant and engineering process. Go ahead.
That opened up the whole levee for recreation.
Yes, sir. It connects East Marysville to the riverfront.
It does.
Right? What does it say there?
Bike path improvement along Sampson, improve current improve safety along 17th and 22nd.
I'm gonna make the assumption that this is Sampson. Sampson would go down, all the way down to the levee, and as you know, there's an actual bike up to the levee, and you can just take that and then make that connection out to the new pathway that would create to the riverfront park.
Right on around.
So that's the loop, right? So we have a loop coming down from here to the levee, to the cemetery, across 70. Now you opened up, you go to soccer games, you know, you drive out there, you take your bike, whatever it may be, or enjoy the recreational activities, go in that direction. What is that?
This is the proposed bike path connecting hospital and veterans.
Oh, this one right here. So on 14th Street, we would do a bike improvement facility that would hit the hospital. So that's another work place. I'm assuming this is the hospital. And then you would connect that bike path down to the 14th path to the TOD proposed development, the transit-oriented development. So now you have maybe people that want to work in the hospital, may want to live over here and get there using other means other than bike vehicle. What is that?
Bike from 5th Street Bridge connecting the hospital, California, and Geo Park, and the newly proposed development.
So we would create a bike, right now, we have ATP grant that we are working on, and I'm assuming that it calls for that 6th Street bike path improvement on 6th Street, parallel to the 5th Street improvements. And that would connect the new bridge down all the way to, this is 8th Street maybe? B. Somehow we'll get to through the Park, through Simpson Lane, and then across, and we create this loop over here as well.
Yeah, that's right about YS Recology and down that way, then right across.
No.
They go down by Hollywood Park.
Yeah, kind of by Simpson Lane.
Yeah.
This is Simpson Lane.
Yeah.
And so we would take, this is Ramirez, right?
Yep.
This
Yeah.
is Ramirez, down to Simpson Lane and we'll cross Yuba Park, and then we'll go around to 6th Street and connect to the 5th Street Bridge. I believe our current ATP that we're supposed to work on calls for that 6th Street bypass, so I think we have funding for this already.
Ricky?
Yes?
See, we made that jog and go back to the right. If you continue right on down that Levy Road across Simpson Lane, that connects all that, because that way coming back
Oh, yeah,
around.
you can actually, you're right, you can connect this to the Levy Road,
Yeah.
another bike path out here, another trail, which I know Yuba Water Agency is really interested in creating kind of a regionalized trail and hit the park.
Over here.
What's the park called?
Yuba Park.
No, the park,
Oh,
the
Gavin.
park.
Hammond Grove,
Hammond Grove?
is that the one you're talking about?
The one, the fishing spots over there where they do camping?
Hollywood Park?
No.
Oh, Hammond Grove.
Talking about,
Highway 20?
On Highway 20?
That's Hammond Grove.
Anyone? Sycamore Ranch, thank you. So what Yuba Water Agencies, they want to create trails to hook up Sycamore Ranch, so that'd be another way to kind of connect that.
we do have a levee run down there.
That's right, there, man. Anyway, can you move this way, the slide? Can you, the map? The map? Yes, thank you. That's it, that's perfect. So see, we connect the 5th Street Bridge, and then again, we make another connection along the levee that can go around and around and around, right? So what's the next slide? So San Joaquin Valley JPA just got funded $500 million to do a train station to do a train station right here by Natomas. So that's already been funded, and so the ACE train will actually go all the way over here. They're going to start construction very soon on that, and then they're going to have some buses, shuttles, that'll hit the airport.
Jesus,
So that's already been paid for.
that's good.
What they want to do now is reach Northern State. They want to get to Orville. But to get to Orville, they have to hit Marysville. So in phase 2, if we advocate enough, the hope is that they can, if you go to the next slide, take that train to our current depot area, right?
The depot, as in you're talking
The
about?
old depot,
The one
where
where children
kind
sit
of by
on
the
depot?
hospital is.
Yeah, okay.
So there's a couple options there. Acquire the current depot, maybe use our plant over there to kind of create the parking for it, whatever it may be. But again, that's another, in the next 5-10 years, that's okay. They're probably going to fund the train, and they're going to need a station in Marysville. So we can use either this as a station for Marysville, and then they're going to need a train stop to keep their train. If you go to the next slide, we would take the train, go around Junction right here, and come back next to our development. Double track that if you go to the next one.
So Mayor, you're talking about using the existing track, the BNSF, right there on the Feather River, going through Binney Junction and hooking around to the Santa Fe line that's on the other side of Marysville, and then putting a double
so
track
we'll
in
come
there?
back to this development, double track it, and create a station there for the depot for the train.
And this can all be done with?
Their funding, their
SYNCOP
JPA
funding,
funding.
not
No,
us.
JPA, the
JPA.
San Joaquin Valley folks who are constructing these trains. They already got one in Natomas. They want to go all the way to Orville. And if we advocate, and I think it makes sense to them as well to make one, they already made a presentation a few years ago. They went after just the Natomas one. They want to do phase 2 to go up to Marysville, so they need a place to park the train. And my thought is to park it over here and connect it to our transit-oriented development. So these boxes, if you go to the next slide, we would create a transit hub right here that would tie all those different systems, all the express buses, and it would include somehow an access to the train, whether it's to Sacramento or to Chico, to Grass Valley. There's a lot of people that work in from Yuba City and Marysville. So working with U.S. Sutter Transit and create these express buses to these different areas. And Capital Corridor actually does come to Marysville, and they currently stop over here at the county. So working with them to make this the transit-oriented, so that minimizes the need for cars. The goal is to kind of bring all these different transit express buses, so these people who live in these developments can just not necessarily have a car or minimize the parking requirements, and they can actually just go to work to Sacramento, Yuba City, without using a car, which reduces some congestions in different places.
Mayor,
Yes?
since Yuba Sutter Transit's going to be moving, and it's going to be soon, any plans or any thoughts by us to maybe develop a
You
project?
get a lot
for them?
bigger space.
Well, that whole, the two
No,
pinks, the yellow and the blue and the brown could be,
Well, I was talking to Larry Booth the other day. He said when he was in high school, the population was 12,000 in Marysville.
yeah,
The current population in Mary is 12,000.
yeah, that's right.
So what we're proposing is new housing to bring people in here, to activate, to give people different options, whether they're seniors who want smaller spaces, or whether it's young people who are working in Sacramento and maybe want a different way of life, and they can get here pretty easy, connected by the trails, by the bike paths, and the transit system. This right here would be allocated for a parking or parking structure. Again, these are just Ricky's thoughts. I have no measurements in this at all. But could include a structure that could actually help with the noise with the train. Actually, we can add some charging stations for the new electric cars in here as well, and we can generate some revenue there as well. This would be a high density, I say mixed use, if you go to the next slide. I don't know what, go to another slide. What did I say?
Parking include electric.
Oh, that, okay, so that'd be the parking. Next slide. So they'll be here, the first building that could be commercial, maybe up front, and do some residence in the back or do floors. I'm thinking there's a building where there's a senior center over there by the hospital. That's a 4-floor building, so we know we can support. Say that again, ma'am?
6.
6? Oh, well, even higher. And then, so do that one and do retail. Again, I'm not an expert on it. That was just my thought. And then do a second unit over here or a hotel. Go to the next slide. So this would be the second building with a hotel. A lot of this stuff, I think, like in my mind, if you bring like a grocery store that has, or some little small markets or pharmacy or whatever it may be underneath, again, I don't know. But again, the entry would be this way. You create some pedestrian walkways, entry to your transit hub, entry to your parking lot. This area right here, I think the gas station really wants to expand. What I suggested to them is they use this area that is really of not a lot of use for us to expand their gas station. So I think those conversations could be had with those developers as well. If you go to the next slide. That's the last slide. So that's my input, folks.
All right.
Are you opening up a design company? Watch out.
So what do you think about those thoughts about bringing income from different areas? Yes?
Well, there were a lot of thoughts, so there's a lot to think about there. I would say that you should, that putting some dimensions down to some of these concepts would be a really important first step. This is why we brought in Ascent, because we wanted to know, based on the city's existing ordinances, how many units could we fit, what kind of density would make sense, and you've put a lot of uses onto this site, and so figuring out, feasibly, big or small should a parking structure be? How much land does a hotel need? I was trying to think about that because I've done some very high-level hotel assessments, and I feel like the site size is about twice as big, but I would need to go back and look. But I feel like we were dealing with more like 10-acre sites just for a hotel. So, you know, all of these things can be done at any scale, but the most dense and urban concepts are done in places like San Francisco or Oakland, or, you know, so some of the really cool concepts that you're talking about might be a little bit ahead of their time in Marysville. So I think that definitely putting pen to paper in terms of figuring out what are the right dimensions for these concepts would be good. And then I think in terms of having the train line come around, it looks like the train would be leaving one set of tracks and then going on to a different set of tracks. So I guess my first question would be, when it has to go on to UP, you know, what does UP think about that? Would they be willing to have that conversation?
Yeah,
And it's an interesting interagency effort.
I don't know how the San Joaquin JPA is doing it. They're working
Yep.
with UP and using their facilities. They're not building another track. They're actually using the UP facility.
So maybe exploring how that's been done elsewhere and what it takes to further that conversation would be another potential next step.
Did you study our parks at any for land use?
I'm sorry?
We have about, 17 parks? How many do you have, Greg? 15 parks. Yeah. You know, that's a lot. I think we have probably 3 parks per 100 people. And that land has to be looked at in some regard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a very touchy subject, but it needs to be looked at.
So one thing I shared with the city manager earlier today, and I don't have all my facts straight, so I'm going to say this very tentatively, but I understand that there is an increasing amount of pressure coming from the state to dispose of surplus property for housing. Mm-hmm. So to the extent that the city has parcels that may be surplus, if you don't want to be restricted to housing, I would consider those sooner rather than later.
You read it, didn't you? On my forehead?
Sorry?
Did you read that on my forehead?
No, I did not. I guess you've been talking to some of the same people I have. So parks cost money to maintain, and I understand.
And they're needed. We need to have parks, but
Right.
we don't have to have 15 of them for 12,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
I think also just to add, Isabel, if things are going statewide in the direction that you talked about earlier today and you just mentioned now, then as we embark on our housing element update, which is due by December 2021, we may find some challenges around land and land use and surplus land as we embark on that effort that will force us to look at some of these issues, actually.
Yeah, I'm really not an expert in that area. It's just something I've been hearing multiple times, and I think,
Well, I'll
whoever
make a
you work with on
disclaimer.
your housing element may be able to speak to
I'd
that.
like to make a disclaimer. We're not taking any parks right now.
Right. Understood.
Okay, well, thank you. I guess I'm not sure, we'll wait for staff to provide I don't know, any input on anything else you guys want to provide, or?
I'm not super keen on option 3, I'll tell you that, but.
No, okay, I think 3 is probably the worst one.
To me, I think it makes sense to do housing on that property if we can. We need housing, and, yeah, I think we would fill it up. I think there'd be a lot of demand for that housing if it were available. So something with housing, whether it's with retail on it as well. I like the idea of having a place to go to for people to hang out, and it's by the lake. So one of those two, I think, would be a good option.
Mixed use, hotel, housing, things like that.
I mean, I don't know if we can add some of those active transportation elements and stuff, but I think I'd like to explore that maybe on Friday when we talk about, I don't know if there's gonna be room for that, but I mean, as we build our goals for the next few years, how this development can we make it, my thought process on all that was, how do we make it affordable for a developer to come in if we do a lot of the infrastructure, or we get monies to get infrastructure, and we add amenities like bike paths or connections to other sides of the cities and stuff. And so that was my thought on this TOD makes us more competitive for some of these grants that we go after, and so on and so on. Can we get both market rate and affordable housing in the development? So it's not just old development. Maybe we have multiple income levels in the housing unit. So we do market rates, and we do also low income. That allow us to be competitive for some infrastructure improvements that we need in there. My goal is to make it cheaper. We can get some state dollars that they want to right now spend, especially in small cities like ours. And it's not only about Marysville. I think we also have to consider we're part of this kind of a Yuba Sutter area, and Sacramento, Chico, Nevada County. We're kind of in the middle of a lot of things that I think, makes us pretty attractive in many ways in my mind. And then we have a small town downtown that is amazing, as we know, with HDTV. And then we have a riverfront park, and we have a lake. We have so many amazing amenities. We got baseball in that property. I don't know who these developers are, but I really think that what you presented, unfortunately, is the same view that everyone has of Marysville. Let's just do, maybe a couple stores, a couple houses. No one's really interested in developing in Marysville, which is really unfortunate, because I like to think big. Let's think about big things that we can do. This is our only property that we have. So I guess for me, I was a little bit, I don't know, I was a little bit, I think you did a lot of work, and I appreciate the work, but I think even the outside world sees us as this place that they're not going to invest a lot of money. In my mind, I think we have so much to give and so many amenities, and if we improve some of our bike and ped facilities, we connect the workplaces with transit-oriented development, and we bring transit over here, and if we just happen to have the train come here and those discussions happen and we plan for it, I think it will be a game changer, because then now you have an entire way to get transporting people over here and back and forth. Yes, ma'am.
I really appreciate your comments. I've been in Sacramento for about 15 years now, and when I moved to Sacramento, there wasn't much going on. It was hard to find a place to live. All the housing stock was old. Everything shut down at about 6 o'clock. And it really took some local developers who wanted to take a risk on doing a mixed-use project to come in and almost lose their shirts on it to show other larger investors and developers that those projects could work. And I think Marysville is in a very similar spot right now, right? You're continuing to hear the same story over and over again of why people can't do this or why people can't do that. And I heard all that when I lived in Sacramento. But you just need one person to come in and decide they really want to do it and have a really successful partnership with the city. And once someone has had a success, even a moderate success, I think that will really open the doors for a lot more of that to come. And Marysville is not alone. There are a lot of cities like Marysville where you have these amazing downtowns with these great bones, but you need somebody to come in and take a risk.
Thank you. Yeah,
Sure.
and I think for me, it's trying to find dollars to make it affordable for these developers, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we get some grants to make the infrastructure to a point where it makes sense for them to be able to come here?
Mm-hmm.
I really think Sacramento people want to live in Marysville, they just haven't seen it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to enjoy the downtown Marysville, and they want to enjoy the river and the access to everything we have,
Mm-hmm.
and have baseball during the summer. So I just think HGTV has done a great job to hopefully get what Marysville is about. But we do have to think big and look for a spark. And I think this is an opportunity to do it. I think we could do the development, like you said. We probably can sell that hot corner for tomorrow probably, and do some Burger King or Taco Bell or maybe a Starbucks. They'll do it because there's so many traffic. But then that's just in my mind going backwards. I think we have an opportunity to think big. I'm not saying that my thoughts are best, but I think we need to continue working on how do we improve that facility, tying it to TODs, to transit, and then tying it to bike and ped facilities to connecting the river. And I think those are things that are doable, because I think there's money out there that we can go after and be competitive, especially the bridge one. I think the Highway 70 connection, I think would be pretty competitive, especially with Caltrans making those improvements out there. Making that connection itself would be pretty impressive, I think, in my mind.
Well, you know, I think that we have one thing, an advantage that a lot of them don't. We don't have developer fees here. And also, you know, the Mello-Roos is not like Plumas Lake, and all those advances that the developers put on the homeowners, and they pay that off. We don't have that, and that's one thing I'd be very, very cautious about, is not putting that burden on a tentative person buying houses. Because I think if you drive down the streets of Marysville at night and see 12, 14 cars parked in one single-family dwelling, you know what's going on there. They're renting those rooms out, because there's no affordable housing. So.
And let's get clear, affordable housing means that a family that's making $60,000 a year doesn't have to pay more than $20,000 or a third of their income, right?
Right.
I mean, so that's $1,000, $1,200 rent. And I think if we can create those type of units, I think there are out there in my mind, but again, it's bringing those people from Sacramento or maybe even, I mean, even folks who are retired and just want a smaller space, right? And they can still be in Marysville and not have to go to the way to Oakland or the Bay Area or Sacramento to get a condo or something.
I think affordable housing is almost like meaningful wage.
Anyway, staff, is that enough input?
Yes.
Yes, we have direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be back.
Go get them, Jonathan.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Does the public like to comment on this area? Oh, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, great presentation. I'm Stuart Gilchrist, 101 C Street, hotel, hotel, hotel. We need hotel rooms. Housing and hotel, yes, but hotels. We need hotel rooms. Not motels, but hotels. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, HGTV crew. You guys are awesome. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Damona Dibble, and I own Diggs at 322 D Street in Marysville. I'm so glad I came to this meeting. Listening to the presentation, the first thing I thought of was hotel as well. We've talked before about appropriate growth and the idea of what do I want to see across from the lake. As much as I feel we need affordable housing, I think there's a lot of existing buildings that can be retrofit for something like that, but we have an opportunity with a blank slate there to create what we want people to see when they come through the town. And I think a nice, clean, affordable, but somewhat, well, just an attractive hotel coming through is a really great thing. And I really enjoyed the presentation about the transit, because I also jotted down park and ride, you know, what are people going to do when they get here? So I instantly went to hotel myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I will give my input. Being a Marysville resident for around 60 years, affordable housing would be better for that, because the hotels, we have so many of them, and they become drug infested, and most of them. So affordable housing for the people that need to be in housing is more appropriate.
Thank you, ma'am. And what's your name again, for the record?
My name's Karen Leggett, and I've been here 61 years.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Marilyn Russell. I live at 14 East 17th Street in Marysville. I'm a lifer here, and let me tell you, that spot is prime. We need to take advantage of our lake, And don't not put storage units or anything else. We need a hotel. If we make it, people will come. We have a class reunion. Everyone calls, where can we stay? No, there's only one place in Marysville that's a motel that anybody would stay, and it's always full. So they go to Yuba City. But we need something with like an event center in it, something that will bring people here and utilize that lake. I love Ellis Lake. Love it. And we need to have places that people can sit outside and enjoy it. And we need to encourage everyone to pick up their garbage and not make this, just the blight around is horrible. Anyway, please,
Thank
a
you.
hotel.
Did you mention your name? I'm sorry. Did you?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Pardon me?
Thank you. Any other input from the public? Thank you, everyone. I know it's kind of long, but I thought it was a great presentation. I think we're moving forward in the right direction and look forward to having further discussion on the 21st, on Friday. Let's move to our community and consent calendar forum. Individuals wishing to address the city council concerning consent calendar items or on matters not already on the agenda, we invite you to make oral comments of up to 3 minutes. We ask you to please fill out a speaker's card and submit it to our city clerk, Nicole, sitting over there. When you are called, we ask you to please go to the podium and give your name clearly for audio recording. You are requested to address your comments to the council and not to the audience. And by state law, the council is not permitted to undertake any action or discussion on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. If you have any documentations that you would like to distribute to the council, we ask you to please provide to the city clerk as you approach the podium. Is there members of the public?
Yes, first we'll be hearing from Karen Liggett and second by Brian Brown.
Karen Liggett, again, Marysville resident. I was going to talk about something else tonight, but I'm putting it on hold for the chief for a later date. But I also wanted to talk to you guys about that pot dispensary over by the hospital. I was parked there a couple weeks ago. I got a phone call and I pulled over to get on the phone. I wasn't there but 30 minutes. And I almost got hit by 2 pot drivers within 30 minutes from them leaving that pot shop. They came close to hitting my car. I had to get off the phone and move my car in order to finish the conversation. I wasn't so happy. And so I'm getting ready to do the injunction on both pot shops because I'm tired of smelling their pot. I'm tired of worrying about those people coming by my car, looking in to see what they could steal or what they could break in. And if I leave my car, I'm worried about coming back to it being broken into or stolen. So I'm doing my injunction papers now, and I'm getting ready to sue Marysville for that as well. So I thought I'd give you a heads up. I am still in the works on it. I have not given up because I'm going to protect our kids from city council.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next, we'll be hearing from Brian Brown.
Hi, how's everybody doing? I just wanted to know, we're here tonight to hear your decision on the Brown versus Butcher versus the city of Marysville. The county last week on their vote on the board voted a political yes, I guess, so we're just really anticipating whether or not you're in agreement with the tentative settlement that we had on February 3rd, and that's what I'm here for, and the rest of the folks.
So our city attorney made a comment earlier in the agenda, so that's when the comment happened.
Okay. Well, would that already took vote? Is
We
that what you're saying?
didn't take a vote,
No,
sir.
not yet.
No.
Will that be tonight?
No, sir.
That's not even on the agenda?
No, sir.
All right.
Any other public comments?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Let's move to the consent calendar. All matters in the consent calendar are considered routine and are therefore approved by one motion unless a council member or the city manager first requests that a matter be removed from the consent calendar. What's the will of the council or city manager?
Make a motion to approve.
There's a motion on the floor.
Second?
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is approved with a vote of 5-0. Thank you.
4.
4-0. Thank you.
It should be 5.
We'll move to public hearing. Public hearing to adopt by reference 2019 California Fire Code, 2019 California Building Standards Code. Recommendation for staff is to pass a motion waiving the second reading and review of the ordinance amending the municipal code as stated. And 2, directing the city clerk to publish and comply with the California Government Code section as stated on the agenda. If adopted, this ordinance will be in effect on March 20th. Mr. Sachs, Chief Sachs.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, honorable council members, before you is a request for waiving the second reading and review of the ordinance for adopting the 2019 Fire Code, Electrical Code, and Building Code, as we had discussed at a previous council meeting where we waived the first reading and had some discussion in reference to it. This is to bring us up to current code and state standards. So we're here to waive the second reading this evening on that. I could read the entirety of that paragraph if you'd like me to.
No.
About all the amendments and, I'm sorry, about all the.
Did you hear me reading it?
Yeah, references and appendices and everything else, but it's all included. So we're just here to waive the second reading, and then it would be effect, well, actually, we have to have a public hearing for public comment, and then March 20th, 2020 would go into effect. Happy to answer any questions for you.
Questions? Comments from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to do 2 things. 1, to waive the second reading, and 2, directing the city clerk per their statement here.
Make a motion.
Is there a second?
Third.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is approved with the vote of 4-0. Thank you all. Item 8, submission of Federal Emergency Management, also known as FEMA Assistance to Firefighters Grant Application. Recommendation from staff is to pass a motion approving the submission of the FEMA Assistance to Firefighters Grant Application for purchasing needed equipment, including communication, hoses, and a new fire engine. Chief Carlin.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Before you, we're asking for approval to apply for the FEMA AFG grant. We applied for this last year, and this is where we got the funding for our SCBA's and for the safer positions. So this year, we're going after radio equipment to keep replacing old and antiquated equipment, and also for fire hose and for a Wildland Type 3 engine, should we not be successful with a CDBG grant. So there are some matching funds we've allocated where those resources will be coming from should we get any one of those grants awarded to us.
Any questions?
Through the
from
chair.
Council? Yes, sir.
I thought we had some fire hoses on order.
We did get the Cal Water grant for $30,000, so we are in a bid process right now to purchase some hose, but right now, $30,000 gets us about 1.5 vehicles worth of hose. So hose is very expensive, and all of our hose is outdated.
Last one to remember, that I remember.
Yep, you're
Thank
correct.
you, Chief.
Any other questions? The matching, do you have a sense of what the amount will be for the matching dollars coming out of the general fund?
As of right now, we've earmarked money from our current budget to hold over for those expenditures in next year's budget, should we be awarded.
But do you know how much?
Say total.
Is that at the back, on the bottom side
It's
there?
listed out on the back.
Oh.
It's
I just saw the front, sorry about that. So it's $40,000.
$40,000. If we were to get all 3 grants, it'd be $40,000 matching funds.
Thank you. No further comments from council. Are there any comments from the public on this matter? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the submission of this FEMA Assistant to Firefighters Grant.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion's approved with a vote of 4-0. Thank you, Chief. Item 9, City Council Travel and Conference Attendees. Recommendation is to pass authorizing Councilmember Stephanie McKenzie to attend the 2020 Cap to Cap Conference and to require all future attendees to conferences and trainings by City Council members be approved by a majority of vote of the City Council as budgeted for in the City Council Professional Development Account. Let's take the two separate. Let's start with the first one. I think the more the merrier. The Cap to Cap is an important thing. Last year was the first time that that we actually sent the representative, and I thought it was a worthwhile opportunity. That's why we budgeted this year for 2 additional people to go. I think as long, in my mind, for item 2, as long as we plan for it and we budget during our planning process and we put it in the budget, I think that should be sufficient without having to come back to the council. So that's my thoughts. Stephanie, since you brought it up.
Yes. Thank you. So I thought because of what our code says, in the travel of members, it says that, except as otherwise provided herein, permission for travel requests by city council members must be authorized in advance by the council in the same manner as other business of the council. So it's something that we should do as a practice because it's in our code. So I know we have previously done that, and I don't know if it's just we haven't remembered that this is how we should do it, or that we're just used to. I know you're used to making committee appointments and things like that. So the reason I brought it up is I was on the list to go, and I thought it would be a conversation at some point of who would be going to cap, thinking that I would be the reasonable next choice since I was a senior member of the council. So finding out that other members had been chosen, but it hadn't been discussed at the full council, I thought we should bring it here, and I would like to go. So obviously we have a first motion to authorize me to go on this trip, but also to talk about our protocol for making those decisions in the future, to make sure that all of the councils are given, council members are given the due consideration that we all deserve when it comes to professional development opportunities. So, since it's not spelled out, it's different than a committee assignment. So I know that the mayor's, it's spelled out in our code that is definitely the responsibility of the mayor to make this committee's appointments. But as far as travel, it isn't spelled out. It just says that the council needs to approve it and vote on it. So I thought that it might be wise in the future to make sure that everybody has an equal opportunity to take these trips, so that we have a process for doing that, maybe set up a protocol as far as who's interested and able to go, who's a senior member or have not taken the trip yet, possibly depending on what it is. Have we expended our travel budgets? And so Marty printed out for us, or provided in the update that we got, our expenses so far, and there is some budget left for me to have some space to go on this trip. So anyway, as far as the first motion goes, I'm just requesting for the council to approve me to go on the Cap to Cap trip at the end of April. And so I don't know if you want to just address that one first.
Okay, there a motion on the floor, is there a
So
second?
moved.
Motion and second on the floor, any further discussion?
Yes, I have something to say,
Yeah,
if
go
I
ahead.
might, on that same issue. You know, I thought I looked in the budget, and the approved budget this time was $18,500 for travel, city council. That's a lot of money, and that's approved. There's no reason why anybody should be held up going on. I spent absolutely nothing since I had 6 years on this council on travel. And I see $24,000 for my friend Brad, $2,000 for going on these other places. You know, that's what the money's for. It's supposed to go. But let everybody have a chance to go. Who made the appointment for the BMLC? That was an arbitrary decision.
I made a request for that.
Well, but you did, but she didn't, and I wasn't going because I'd been there. He might have liked it. I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying that there should be a procedure on how this is done. I didn't even know they were taking applications for it. Not that I wanted to go.
I didn't either. With respect in response to that, I saw an email, I believe it was the 4th or 5th, or
Where
whatever
did
the
it
case
come
was.
from?
It came from Janelle?
Dennis Snell.
Janice, yeah, it came through Janice. I saw it in the emails, and I made a request to the city manager inquiring if there was funds available, and I believe she was out of town that weekend. She got back to me quickly and said there was funding available, like 2 days later, and I
But
said,
not only
I
that,
show interest.
I think the email said that no one else had asked at that point in time when you made that decision, right? About Brad?
Nobody, yeah, because I mean, I remember getting a response back from you, Marty,
Well,
saying that
don't
there was
misunderstand
funding
me,
there.
I'm not criticizing you going. I'm just criticizing that it wasn't advertised to everybody a second notice or anything. It was nothing.
Fair enough. I didn't
That's all
know it
I'm
was an
saying.
advertisement, but
That's-
okay.
I think it's a good trip. You need to go and see what they're doing on the other side. You'll
I'm
enjoy
looking
it.
forward to the opportunity to represent and go.
And I
but-
agree with our young councilwoman over there, that, you know, there needs to be a selection process. They can't just arbitrarily say, you're gonna go, do you wanna go, and not anybody else gets to go. Don't count me in, because I'm not going. I've been them all.
I guess I'm a little bit taking it back because somehow you're saying that I made those selections.
I didn't say you did.
No, the comments here are being directed to me because they're saying that the mayor selected people to go. I think people showed interest. My cost is being covered by SACOG, the full cost of it. We made a decision last year during our budget process to budget for 2 people. That's the way we made a decision, that's the way we made a policy decision, and I think that should be the way we do it. We have a planning meeting on the 21st, we have additional planning budget meetings, and I think that's where we're at, and say, hey, you know what, I wanna go to League of Cities, or I wanna go to cap to cap. All right, let's make the budget bigger because everyone wants to participate. I think that's the policy decisions that we made at the beginning of the year, and people showed interest, and I said, oh, it looks like Brad and Bruce want to go. My assumption that I made, and I apologize, Ms. McKenzie, is that your teaching work sometimes conflicts with some of your travel. And so I made that assumption, so I apologize for that. But when I saw the 2 council members had interest in going, and mine was going to be covered already, well, if their interest, go talk to the city manager. She knows the money. So that's how, I need to choose.
I wasn't accusing anyone.
People showed interest.
And so I didn't know that, and I was interested as well, and I'm not arguing with you, I'm just saying.
Well,
I think it's
I heard a bit of an
I think-
accusation,
well,
but anyway, I think we
no, wait,
move forward.
let me finish.
No, hold on, let me finish,
please.
let me finish. I say we move forward by making it part of our budget process. That whoever wants to participate in the different travel opportunities, we'll put it in the budget. Like, I imagine that there's gonna be another, Beal, trip. We should budget for that next year, and maybe even make the appointments then and say, I wanna go, I'll be able to take those days off. I think all of us have an opportunity to go to League of Cities. I think Nicole sent that email last year. Anyone interested in going to League of Cities?
Well, you've been very conservative on spending.
Well, and unfortunately, SACOG has paid for my way for many of these trips, right? So, anyway.
Which is a benefit, and I appreciate that they do that, because I think it's great, you know, the more people can take advantage of these educational opportunities, the better. So I just think probably communication is the thing that we need to make sure that we're communicating these things. I didn't know when it was coming, and I had asked Marty about it, and so found out there's already been a discussion. So I think in the future, we just need to make sure we put it out there, cap to cap's coming up on these dates.
Well, I
Who's
think we do it
interested?
before. Cap to cap is going to come the following year.
Right.
So during the budget time,
Right.
that is coming in the next couple of months, we just allocate more monies.
Well,
It's
we
in the
did,
budget.
we allocated some this year,
18.5
but I
in the
just think the
budget line?
communication didn't go out, that this is coming up, who's interested in going, so that's all I'm saying.
Correct, so
is that-
what I'm hearing is I think more than 2 people are gonna wanna go next year. Maybe 4 or 5 people wanna go, so we allocate enough for 5 people to be able to go. That's what I'm saying. So there's money there's
Right.
available for
We'll just-
all 5 of us to be able to go.
Right. So, yeah, that's fine, but I just want to make sure that we're communicating about it in the future so that You know what I mean? Just so that it's just an open communication about it's coming up, the dates wise, so the conversation can happen about who's interested.
I guess I just want to be clear, there's no selection process. I didn't select folks. People showed interest, and I had them go talk to Nicole or the city manager.
Okay.
Mayor, I think
Thank
that, I think that the BMLC would, said they had room for one person, but I think that, since we're the new member of the BMLC, that we could probably say would like to have another person, and we have the money to send whoever else wants to go.
I think that email said they only had one spot left.
She did, but I'm
Yes.
just saying to you that, after spending 10 years on that board of directors, I think maybe we could probably get another spot.
Hey, I think that'd be awesome. I think it's going to be a great experience to make sure we have there, so.
I think it's a good deal. You'll
So there's a
enjoy it.
motion, a second on the floor. Any public comments? The motion is to approve the costs associated with the travel and stay and participation to the Captain Cap coming up on April 25th for Stephanie McKenzie. Is there a vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is approved with a vote of 4-0. I like to just use through our budget process, through our planning process, that we allocate, and at that point say who's going to these, and then just allocate it, right? And so we don't have to trouble, like, that's our policy direction during the budget process.
Right, and we did, so in the future, so for example, we're going to be setting a budget for 2021.
Correct.
Right, in the coming, so there's going to be an election, so there'll be new members who may not, possibly, potentially there'll be one new member for sure, right? So, are you, I don't know.
The way things
though.
are going around here,
If
I might
you're
go for 4
retiring.
more.
If you don't retire, we'll all be here, baby, but, potentially somebody who will be new on the council that won't have an opportunity at the time of our budget, say,
Good
to
point.
know that that's even something that we do. And so they'll be in the springtime when Cap to Cap is coming, it may be something that they're not even aware of. Do you see what I'm saying?
We'll make sure our
So I'm
clerk
saying
lets
at the
everyone
time-
know of the opportunity if there's a change in membership.
Right,
in
so,
November.
yeah, we just need to make sure that everybody's fully aware of the opportunities when they come, so that they, if they're interested, that they can put their name in the hat for
Treat it
that.
like a
Yeah.
Form 700.
I mean, I know in January, we make sure that we send our new members to the League of Cities, and that's important, and we want to make sure we allocate funding for that if there's new members. If it doesn't get spent, it doesn't get spent.
That's right. Let's carry over next week, next.
All right, and to continue with our practice of bringing travel for approval to the council, so.
But I guess what
we
I'm
need to
saying
do
is we
that.
already approved it through the budget process.
Right, but do we have to do it as in,
That is the
like,
vote. That is the vote, the budget
is
process.
that, Brent, is that the way, I'm just thinking of when we have a police officer that's traveling, it's just a formality that we do to say this person has a permission to travel, or is that, how does that work in this regard?
Chief, don't you approve the officers going somewhere?
Yes, actually, we budget for it in the budget process for all the training coming up, and then it's already approved at one time. Unless there's any modifications to the training budget, then we would have to come back and ask for council authorization if we exceeded that budget authority.
I think what she's talking about,
So-
if I may, Mayor, I think she's talking about like a councilman's going to go off to vacation for 5 days or go to a meeting in Nevada, that they ask, get permission from this board to do
If
that.
it's not in the budget, outside the budget approval.
It has nothing to do with the budget.
Okay.
It's asking permission to go. When you say you go, there's apparently a budget to fund it. I think that's what you're talking about.
Well, what does it mean? Well, I'm just looking at this, so I don't know if you can clarify what this means. Does this mean outside of our budget process? So it's in the general travel of members. It says, except as otherwise provided herein, permission for travel requests by city council members must be authorized in advance by the council in the same manner as other business
So
of
the
the
authorization,
council.
in my mind, can come through the budget process.
Is that what this is referring to? I don't know what it's referring to. I'm not arguing, I just want to
It
understand.
really
what it's-
doesn't matter. If you do it in the budget process, it gets done.
Okay, okay, perfect.
If you don't do it in the budget process, then whatever the council says is at a later date
Okay.
takes care of it.
Through the chair, I remember that we didn't have a budget to send mayor to Cap last year, and we had to approve it on the dais, if I remember correctly. And we did for that particular reason, because that was the first time anybody ever went to Cap.
Because it wasn't in the budget.
Ever.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and then off of that, we decide to budget 2 to go, and then you're getting paid by SACAG this year, is that correct? Correct.
But
So
there's
that's why we
times
do
that
3.
will not require people to get money to go on a travel.
I'm sorry, what was that,
There's
Bill?
going to be times when people do not require city money to go on a trip vacation. If I want to take, I've been on many, many boards, all of them, and anytime the city council left the city, not going to Sacramento, I'm talking about leaving the city, going to another state, they had to get permission that they're going to be gone. That's just the way it was, and that's what that says. It has nothing to do with the budget.
Well, the budget is the policy we're making.
But I'm going on vacation. They're not paying me to go on vacation.
I don't know about vacation.
So clarification, Bill, are you saying that if I wanted to leave the city
That's exactly
personally?
Like if I'm going on personal vacation, I need to
It's
get
called an
permission.
excused absence from the city council is
Oh,
what
okay.
it's called.
Oh,
If you really
I think
wanna
I thought
know.
that was through the mayor, but I didn't know how to be done with
No,
the
you're
council.
talking to the mayor.
Okay, I think we're getting off topic.
Yeah, we
I
are.
think it's been clear that through the budget process, we can approve travel. If there's any changes to that, then we come back to the council. Is that fair?
That's fair, that's
Thank you.
clear. Thank you.
Cite the code.
Any committee reports?
Yes, I have one. No, it's not. It's a comment. I'll wait. Go.
Okay. Council correspondence?
Yes, Mayor, the council has received a letter from Mr. Dale Whitmore. All members of the council have received a copy of this letter, which can be found in your individual inbox at City Hall.
Thank you. We also received a letter from the Buckeye folks. It's in your box if you haven't seen it. If you haven't filled out your entry form, it's due today, so I suggest that you fill it out, take a picture, and send it as an email today if you want to be part of it. That's what I had to do. I had to scan it and send it over today. So this should be available in your box as well, so you can fill out that form. Any city manager report?
I have no report.
You want to share your great forum, public forum that you put together for the public?
The public forum?
Yeah, to do 311, like sidewalks or potholes.
Oh, yes,
The
that would
notification
be the
process.
Public Works Director who put together a work order request form that's available on the city's website and under the Public Works Department's webpage to submit potholes, tree trimming, any kind of work order request for work in the public right-of-way and parks.
And you also put a form to sign up for your newsletter, right?
That is on the city's homepage, that's correct, yes it is.
Thank you.
It has been for a while.
Well, no, there's a new sign-in, like a web sign-in, there's like a new sign-in method now that was sent
Through
out.
Facebook or something like that?
Through Facebook. Okay, well, maybe
maybe
I'll.
not.
Okay,
Maybe
yes, you're right, that's a great idea, yes.
It happened. So just updating the city manager. Council comments, Ms. McKenzie.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to report that we have a Chinatown neighborhood group, and this weekend, we all got together, and Joe Faree and some of the people that came tonight for the other award were out cleaning up Chinatown, pruning trees, cleaning up the parking lot, and generally improving the looks of things for the festival coming up. And so I just wanted to shout out to those neighbors that have come together, and through their efforts, through all of our efforts, working with the police department and doing the cleanups and things, it's been reported that there's been fewer crimes in our neighborhood since we've started. So I'm really happy that everybody's willing to get together and be involved with each other and looking out for each other for safety reasons. We're doing lighting and calling the police and cleaning up, so our presence and working together has made a difference. So proud of my community there. I wanted to let you know that I had a meeting with Gary Sina a couple of weeks ago. He's the superintendent of Marysville Joint Unified, and I asked him, I said, we're about ready to go into planning for next year, goal setting, and I said, how can the city support the school district? And he said, there were several people in there, and they said really one thing we could really do was to make sure our parks are nice, because the kids need a place to be. And they said really a Parks and Rec program, and I know that's something we've talked about, but it hasn't been, made the top list of the list yet. But it's something that they feel would be a real benefit to our young people so that they have something to do. And I said that one of the things that we had talked about before was maybe partnering with Yuba City Parks and Rec by paying the fee, the non-resident fee. And they said, yeah, that's fine, but they're not going over there. They're staying here and getting in trouble. They need something to do here. So a need expressed from the school district of how we can support them, if possible, one day. And just wanted to put this out there as well. I'm on the board with Marysville Youth and Civic Center. And they're probably going to be impacted by the Highway 70 project coming through there. Probably going to be looking for a new location for their facility, and they do an awful lot there. They have roller skating, they have archery, they have performing arts, lots of things happening there, different events and for kids. And so trying to just keep an eye open for opportunities for them possibly. And also I talked to Katie a little bit about maybe there's something we could do at the water agency that might tie in with their need as well. So just making the need known of what they're doing over there. So that's it.
Well, a few things. For one, I'd like to thank you for the B Street presentation. That was all kind of cool. And Mayor, your idea is intriguing.
I put them in like chicken scratch too much.
No, on your report, Marty, on the finance with the cannabis tax, that was pleasant to see.
Yes.
That was surprising to see. So that was pretty cool. That also said, I appreciate everybody's work, chiefs, with your grants and the engines and so forth. And I'm glad to see a full city hall, almost 100% full. And Craig and you guys are doing a phenomenal job on the potholes. Thank you very much for that. I know there's a lot more to go, but it's really nice to be able to go around and see even little small 3-inch patches here and there. It's like, yeah, working on it. I like that. So that's pretty much it. And I am looking forward to the opportunity to represent the city of Marysville with the BMLC, as military is near and dear to my heart, never was in it. But what those young men and women and so forth do for our country and this city is near and dear to my heart. I'd like to see it. And thank you, Bill, again, for working really hard with protocol for getting us the passes to go on the base. I've used it about a half dozen times in the past couple weeks just to go take care of other stuff.
Well, good.
And it was, it's neat not to have to do a 10-minute body search just to get on base. So thank you for that work on that one again. And go from
anytime.
there. So with that, I think we're moving in a positive direction. I feel good about it. I think we're rolling.
Good.
So let's just keep going. Thank you all.
I was glad you took over taking care of the mayor for me, because, he gets lost.
Actually, I was self-motivated. I told him I was going out there to go to
And he said,
protocol.
Can I go?
Because I wanted to go look at the pictures they had out there, the historical pictures, and he
Yeah.
said he wanted to come. And I was like, I think you're okay to come with me. So
Yeah,
we
you
just
can
went out
bring him
together. So
Well, good. So, yes, we have all city council members certified plus a lawyer to go on the bill at their will. So that was a
Good,
good
thank
thing.
you.
And John did a good thing helping us out.
yeah, and the food is cheap. I dig it.
Yeah, the food was pretty good, wasn't it? Did he take you to lunch?
Yeah, he didn't pay for it.
You're kidding. Mike guest paid for all of ours. Okay, I just got a couple things, Mayor. As you well know, it's the first time in the Buckeye history we've had an ambassador represent. And I'm hoping that we've got the proclamation and the gift and everything ready to go for tomorrow night.
There's no event tomorrow.
Yeah, there is. 5:30, right over there.
Tomorrow night?
Yeah, the 18th, or 19th, tomorrow.
I thought it was the 20th.
Oh.
Shoot.
Well, you might be right, but anyway, what I'm trying to say is, I should say it, that there is a Buckeye Parade ambassador this year, first time in the history of it, and we need to probably have someone go present the,
I'll be there, I just didn't know.
yeah, I'll have to get the date for it. Candace sent this to me, and of course, there's no date on it. Nicole had, well, they have this company, I don't know who in the heck it is, but there's no date on it, it just says Buckeye Parade sent you a new message and Buckeye Parade Ambassador Reception.
Saw that. It's good.
I can't confirm if I got something in my inbox. There's some items in there, but I have not seen the
It's
email.
Wednesday, 19th at 6:30 to 6:30 PM at 312 First Street.
So I think we'll be ready to help. I just need to know where it would be.
312 First Street, 6:30.
I understand, but if the city's gonna purchase the flowers or whatever we do.
But that's what you're talking about, yeah, yeah. And a proclamation. It's always nice to get this at city council meetings, isn't it?
Because we didn't receive anything from
Yeah.
anybody, none of my staff.
Well, I didn't either. The slip she sent me says they'll have cars furnished for you. That was 2 years ago. So you better have a spot to put your car in for those who are driving. Anyway, and also I'd like to commend the city manager for an outstanding report this week. It was just phenomenal to read that report. And I know there's some things on there that are challenging, but it's good. Good to see that. And it just documents what you guys are doing, the fabulous job you're doing for this city. It's amazing, every one of you sitting here. And I had a meeting today with Greg, with the GSA members, which is Cordova, Yuba County Water, or Yuba Water, and Marysville. And Greg was there. We talked water for about an hour and had a nice lunch, and everything's going pretty good. Can't report anything other than the fact that the aeration of the riverfront at the Ellis Lake is starting. The numbers are in. Surprising, the numbers don't support what the plan said we're going to do. You know, when you have water that has no negligible phosphorus in it, and you got water that's got pretty heavy ladens of that, it's quite interesting. So we'll see what they do with it. Yeah, we'll see what they do with it. But the aeration's going in, and if, you know, we're looking at $65,000, and if that is approved, plus $6,500 a year maintenance on it, so we'll see. For that reason, I'm not running again. Thank you, guys. That's all I have, Mayor. It's been a funny night tonight. Got my legs fixed.
I want to apologize to Fire Chief for not being able to make dinner on Saturday. I hope everyone's well. Works dinner. This is Saturday, right? Past Saturday? Am I missing it?
It's coming
You're
up.
in luck, it's coming up.
It's coming up.
It's March
It hasn't
14th.
happened yet.
Oh, when is it?
March 14th.
Oh, good. I thought it was
Valentine's Day is a
February.
holiday for me, so I wasn't going to have that function
Yeah,
that day.
my honey wasn't letting
March.
me out, so I'm glad I'll be there. Looking forward to it.
Going to send out notices for all those late goers?
So I'll RSVP for sure. I misread that. Sorry about that. Officer dinner this Saturday also conflicts with our dinners with the Buckeye, so a lot of us will be doing split shift. I hope I will be at the officers' dinner to help the chief present the award. I usually just hold that stuff and chief talks, so I can do that again. But I'm going to try to hit Booth because I think it's always nice to go say hi to Larry and hopefully go to the dinner and then maybe come back to the big dinner, the Chinese dinner. And I got my driver and my wife who doesn't drink, so it all works out.
Well, if you can do that, that's going to be tough, because that's going to be tough to do that.
Yeah, it depends on the schedule of the officers. I do want to let you know that I was invited to participate in the Water Agency's Trails Committee. It's a working committee looking at regional trails that they want to put together around Yuba County, and then maybe even connecting it to other counties. I know the mayor in Yuba City and I have a lot of discussions about reviving the idea of making the Fifth Street train trestle into a walking pedestrian facility and make it a signature thing. So I think there's a lot of talk about it. The Water Agency is interested in that. SACOG is interested in that. So I think, so those things might happen. I think as long as the mayor and I continue pushing it, I think it might happen. So I know he's been invited for that, and that's going to be part of the conversation.
Is that the train station up on the levee?
The train trestle on Fifth Street, the green.
Trestle, oh, I thought you said the train
Sorry,
station.
the trestle.
Excuse
The
me.
trestle
Yeah.
that's not used by UP.
Yeah.
So making that into a trail, bike and ped. Where I put pump number, I don't know what that means. So.
Scratch.
Yeah, I think the water agency is also reconvening the Ellis Lake Committee, and we're going to review the final report. There were some preliminary reports that came out a couple days ago, but they didn't include the sediment information, so the water quality, but we don't know exactly what's in the sediment, and that's going to also provide some good information moving forward. And so that conversation is being had. I don't know, when did they schedule it? March. So it's coming up. Bruce and I will continue being part of that committee, and so on. Anyway, that's some comments I wanted to make. I'm looking forward to the Bacchae. It's always an amazing event. It's one of our unique features in our city that we happen to have the 140th, one of the oldest parades in the entire nation here in Marysville. And so it's incredible history. Look forward to the people, and I thought I'm gonna meet with the public health officer tomorrow, Dr. Liu, who was very instrumental in assuring the public that the coronavirus, we have a very low degree of chance of being affected by the coronavirus because of people coming for the Bacchae celebration. So I really appreciate her efforts in making it very clear that there's almost zero chance of catching coronavirus because of the parade. I know that Elk Grove canceled their festivities, but you know, that was their decision. I think that they took a lot of flack for that. And I know that Sacramento's having their chamber of commerce is having their Asian dinner tonight, and they're continuing with that. So tomorrow I'm going to thank Dr. Liu for her efforts in making it clear to everyone. So come down to the Bacchae Festival. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be a beautiful day to enjoy Marysville and the history of the Bacchae Parade and all the festivities. So with that, do we have a closed session?
We do.
We'll move to the adjourned session. Conference with legal counsel for anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 subdivisions D of Government Code section 54956.9, one potential case.
Go get him, Tiger. Thank you, buddy. Oh,
you got yours too?
yeah, they all got them. Everybody. He's a commander, honorary commander.
Thank you. Sorry, I closed session.
I will release him. You do not. You are released.
See you, Chris. You too. I think so. I think we have had a good evening so far. You want to have this conversation? Okay, here's the deal. The police chief, I was in that rank, like, you just got me going. Yeah, no, I had to call school.
So what dinner are you talking about?
What?
The dinner.
We're having the fireman for a while.
You know the one that we didn't get anybody to?
Yeah, it's like the cops, you know, they did everybody too, you know, similar nature.
Okay,
Really wouldn't want to be embarrassed, or I would embarrass myself.
The question is it?
Yeah, actually, we got that approved. Yeah, no shit, we did. Or I'm bringing a city cup.
Downstairs have like the beer and the wine.
Yeah, I'm bringing a city cup, cooler city cup, we won't know what's in it.
We will. You didn't respond to my message when you sent the first calendar. Who was that trip? No, wait a minute. Oh, who's your friend?
Or my laptop, or my work. Oh. Here's my work, just right now, optimizing work. Oh, actually, just in case we have to actually turn this into a deal.
Oh, I was working on that too.
Oh, shoot. Thanks, Carl. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's arbitrary, like I have a little sweater.
So reconvene to open session. Next meeting of City Council will be having the annual goal-setting meeting on February 21st, 2020, from approximately 8:30 to 4:30 at the U.S. Arts Council Gallery, followed by the next regular council meeting on March 3rd, 2020. We're adjourned.
Because on the calendars I got, it says 8 PM to 9 PM, and I'm kind of going, wait. What? It's the one that came to the email that kind of automatically logs onto my calendar.
Oh, I'll double check that.
No,
That's not it.
because I just saw this, and I'm going, that makes more sense.
Yes. So the doors open at 8 with like a common breakfast and the actual session starts at 8:30. So you can show at 8:25, get a coffee, and go on. This is how I wash the dishes growing up.
Donut or whatever we have. Right.
I have some vegetarian.
A donut is vegetarian? Vegetarian.
It's continental keto friendly.
Wait, you're like serious about this stuff.
Yes. Nicole, you rock this thing. I got a lot to figure out. It was,
Chief, how you doing? Really good.
just saw your husband before I came up here.
Wait, he used to do stuff and I don't work.
I wish I could shop talk.
She said you're going to my
Yeah, I know, we were kind of going for the week. I wouldn't even think going out, and I'm looking at it.
I just did my home this morning.
Yes.
That's.
Old Friday?
Yeah, you can drive if you want. Yeah. Okay. Just let her know. Yes, please. You let her know, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Are you, be safe.
Well,
Are you riding?
I'm gonna take my. Okay. Yeah, and then you ride back.
so much.
Thank you again, guys, appreciate it.
Really good.